Brad, what we've got here is something that is very, very basic to VCS, one of the communication transports. It's called Low Latency Transport, or LLT. What can you explain to us about it?
Sure. So LLT is a transport mechanism that's used by the rest of the VCS stack to get information from one node to another. Right? LLT is a kernel module, right, and is the very first thing that comes up in the VCS stack. LLT, GAB, fencing, etc. It's a layer 2 protocol, so it's really low level in the OSI stack, and the way the nodes communicate are MAC address to MAC address. There's two primary functions, right? The first is heartbeats, right? This is very, very critical to really any cluster product. It's important that every single node knows that that node exists. So the idea of heartbeats is VCS is, and specifically LLT, is constantly heartbeating and sending a small packet from that node to all the other nodes to say, hey, I'm still here. The other key part of LLT is the cluster communication traffic. LLT is responsible for sending all the information that the nodes want to send to other nodes across the LLT links, the Ethernet wires from one node to another. That traffic could be something, for example, let's say someone makes a change in VCS, right? And so now that change has been made on one node, all the other nodes need to know about that. Well, it's actually LLT that sends that across to all the other nodes, right? Let's say GAB has something to tell the other nodes. Same deal. Anything that has to go from one node to the other, it's LLT that's physically responsible for sending that across the other nodes. Well, let's look at a typical 2-node cluster. Right. We're going to have a public network, right? So let's say we'll do a Linux example. And so let's say Ether 0 is how the applications get out to the public network, to the clients. And then let's say we have a couple other NICs here that are going to be used by LLT, right? These NICs, which we would refer to as high-pri links, or private networks, private interconnects, are meant to be specifically for all the traffic that's needed by the cluster. So these would be under the control of LLT, and this is how, for example, we would send heartbeats. Okay? The public network, we refer to that as a low-pri link, right? So it's another communication mechanism for LLT to get stuff to the other node, but since this is the public network, we minimize the traffic we put on that. All told, LLT can have up to 8 interconnects. Right? This is really what we like to see. We'd like to see at least 2 high-pri links. And again, we're going to heartbeat by default every half a second, constantly letting all the other nodes know that. And this is the mechanism that we're going to send any of that communication traffic, like my example where a change was made in VCS. The low-pri link, again, all we're going to do is heartbeat every second. That's it. Because again, we don't want to impact any of the application communication. Right? So these are the key things, and LLT is responsible for all these NICs and sending anything across the wire to the other nodes.
All right, so LLT is really being used on the high-pri and the low-pri. Is that correct?
Correct.
Fantastic. Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking us through what LLT does in VCS.